West Lakeland Township Board to order at 7 o'clock. And the first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. And let's see, the first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of, well, let's start with the Board of Audit minutes. That was also held, that was held on February 9th, same as our last board meeting. And I didn't really see any corrections that need to be made, but does anybody else see any corrections that need to be made? If not, I would move that we approve the draft minutes of the Board of Audit. Do I have a moved and seconded? Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Okay, those are approved. Thank you. And then the next item of business will be approval of the minutes of our February 9, 2026 regular monthly board meeting. And I did have one correction I'd like to make to that. On the very last page, under public comment, second paragraph under public comment, Vodova asked about the status of the recodification. And it says Chairman Moosberger noted that it should say that a first draft of the zoning portion of the recodification should be completed in April. That's actually going to be a draft that we're targeting to complete by the end of April. And there, obviously, there's going to be more after that. You know, that's going to happen. It's going to be public hearing and everything else. So that's just a first draft. That's the only correction that I had to the minutes. Anybody else have anything? I will move that we adopt the minutes of the February 9 town board minutes. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. Okay, so those minutes are adopted. Thank you. Let's see, next item would be, we're already at the treasurer's report and approval of payment of the bills. And is she here? She's at the Baytown meeting. Okay. She'll be here later maybe, or no? Okay, so we'll defer that agenda item for later. Okay. All right. Next would be, we're going to hear from Angie Hong, who is with the Washington County Conservation District, and she's going to discuss the MREP program and West Lakeland's participation in it. Thanks, Angie.
Can you hear me okay if I stay in here? Is this on?
Yep, that's on.
Okay, wonderful. I assume that perhaps you're pulling up the presentation that I sent over. This looks just like my mom's old dogs, Brandy and Emma. I saw it for a moment. I was like, oh my gosh, it's Emma. Okay. So here today to talk to you about the East Metro Water Education Program Partnership. This is a local government partnership which has been ongoing since 2006, and West Lakeland Township has been a member, I believe, since 2009. So we have 30 local government partners. It's hosted by the Washington Conservation District. And if you need a reminder of what the Conservation District is, we are a local government unit that serves all of Washington County, but we're separate than Washington County. We don't have taxing authority. We operate in partnership with cities, townships, watershed districts, and the county, and provide education and technical assistance. So we don't really have regulatory authority in general as well. Back in 2006, there was a lot of conversation amongst local government partners about a need for public education and a desire to do that in a way that would be effective and collaborative instead of everybody putting out a brochure on their own, basically. And so this was the impetus for how the MREP program was created. So we've been trucking along ever since then. It was 6 local government partners in 2006, and now we have 30 local government partners, and have been doing a lot of, I think, really good work over the year. I think we have a lot to show for our collaborative efforts. Some of the things that make MREP unique compared to other education programs is that we're kind of a catalyst to help and support partners and amplify the messages that entities are already putting out there on our own. We're also pretty much entirely, we are entirely funded by the local contributions, although we do sometimes get grants for special projects. So that can be nice in that we have pretty wide leeway to be able to do what local communities want to do and not have to fit into, the strictures of a grant program or have a project that gets up and running and then when the grant funding runs out in 3 years goes away. So we've had this very long-term continuity, 20 years now. Maybe we can go ahead and move forward. I think the part that I might, and this is kind of fun because I've got like 4 slides all in one, so I can pick which one I want to talk about first. The one that I might want to actually draw your attention to first is this one that says 5,793 BMPs, because BMPs is this fancy acronym that we use for best management practices. And what every one of those dots in Washington County represents is a conservation project that has been completed. So that could be a native planting, it could be a rain garden, it could be something really large like a prairie restoration. This photo that you're seeing on the left-hand side here is a native planting at St. Croix Montessori, which is in West Lakeland. That was about an acre that was just completed last year. We do a lot of work with public and private landowners, and I think have a lot of transformative impacts to show as a result. Maybe we could just move forward. We do, maybe just one click forward. We do a lot of different kinds of outreach, and sometimes it is through a workshop that we might host and I'm up giving a presentation and people come and attend. But there's also a lot that is happening through, social media. It's happening through newsletter articles. It's happening on websites, through site visits. The Conservation District does site visits for any kind of landowners. A moment ago, I was showing you the zoomed out version of the dots, and this is kind of a zoomed in version that shows you more closely your area of Washington County. So I think we've got, pretty good coverage across the county in terms of where we're doing our work. But in particular, one place where we have been concentrating a lot of efforts in recent years is with shoreline landowners. So this week, Thursday, in fact, we've got a contractor workshop where we're talking with contractors about, what are the rules for shorelines? How can they work with lakeshore landowners and make sure that people get a beautiful shoreline that they want, but one that also protects water quality and protects our wildlife. We have workshop that is for realtors. We, do workshops with the landowner. So a lot of our emphasis on shorelines. And last year we actually debuted this Natural Shoreline Award, which we're going to continue doing this year, which it was just a really fun way to celebrate the hard work that people have put into creating and maintaining shorelines. Promoting conservation-minded development. This is kind of a big issue in the metro area in general. Washington County in particular is one of the fastest growing counties in the state. And this can really transform what people's communities look like. And so we've spent a lot of effort trying to support city councils, township boards, the county commissioners, and how do you create comprehensive plans that put you in the driver's seat of what your community looks like? How do you make sure to protect your groundwater resources and your lakes and your streams in the process as you're developing? We have been doing an increasing amount of work with homeowners associations because a lot of these new developments, they are established through a covenant where a homeowners association is created. And then that HOA almost acts like a quasi governmental entity, but without necessarily having the expertise like a public works department or a city engineer. And so we're discovering that in a lot of cases they need a lot of extra help from us to know how to take care of their stormwater infrastructure. Um, it's okay, you can keep going to where you just were. There we go. So we created a whole suite of fact sheets for HOAs. We actually had an HOA stormwater leaders course that we piloted last year. And we were really excited to say that we were awarded the Minnesota Watersheds Program of the Year for 2025 for that work with the HOA. So that's something that we're going to continue doing. Have any of you been to the St. Croix River Workshop on the Water? Never. Okay. um, During the summertime, we do a St. Croix River workshop on the water for local officials, and that started back in 2009 as well. So we did did just set the date for Thursday, July 30th to do this year's St. Croix workshop on the water. But that's always a fun opportunity for local leaders to be networking and learning. Probably the thing that you were most familiar with as a township board was how MREP helped you to meet your MS4 permit requirement, which is that whole regulatory framework around stormwater pollution prevention. So that is a core component of MREP, but it's, certainly not the only thing that MREP does. However, we have been, doing a lot of work to promote programs like the Adopt a Drain program. Amazingly enough, 14 storm drains adopted in West Lakeland. I wasn't even sure how that could be possible. I didn't know there were 14 storm drains in West Lakeland. But I looked at the stats and, was happy to see that people in your community are participating in that program. And that's just a nice way to get people engaged in cleaning up the schmucka that would be going into ditches or storm drains and then causing water pollution. All right. So then just kind of the, final components of MREP, which I've touched on a little bit, is the general community building, working with volunteers, the youth education, kind of all of those components. I'm just one person. Our program has now expanded. I shouldn't really say it's expanded, but we have 1.5 people. So there's me and there's Lori Maxfield as part-time, but I think we get a lot done for how few staff we have because we're really, really effective at working with community organizations and with volunteers. We've got 20 certified Minnesota water stewards. I know at least one Deb Wall that lives here in West Lakeland. We've got this new cohort of 43 tree stewards that just got certified last year, and they're doing things like planting trees, pruning trees, watering community trees during the city or during the summertime. And then we've got this list of about 1,200 volunteers that I'm able to communicate with regularly to share information about programs that are happening in the communities. So I know that West Lakeland was lucky enough to get uncertified as an MS4, which is really great because I know that takes away a lot of the regulatory burden for the township. Washington County, I know the Middle St. Croix WMO, the Valley Branch Watershed District would all very much still like to continue having the township in the partnership. It's a relatively small cost, I think, for West Lakeland to be in MREP. I believe it's $900 a year. And this, just kind of helps to make sure that everybody's part of the shared education program and that everybody does stay in communication with one another. We have, I think, 15 cities and townships in Washington County that are all also part of MREP. So there's, a lot of collaborative opportunities that come about. I will say also that if there are things in particular as township board members that you would like to do, issues of importance that we have in the past done things like a landowner in West Lakeland, Mary Green, hosted an event, and we sent out a township-wide mailer and invited everybody to come to the event, and it was all about native landscaping. So there's things like that that we can do. Really, there's kind of no limits on the possibilities. It just takes somebody to make the suggestion, and then we go out there and we do it. So I'm going to pause there. And if you have any questions, let me know. You all also hear from me once a month by email, so you're probably pretty familiar with what we're doing.
Yeah, no, I don't have any questions exactly, but, well, maybe I do. I thought I saw on your website the list of municipalities that are participating. And
Yeah.
was that correct, or did I miss something? That we're the only township, the rest are cities and watershed districts and WMOs and maybe the county and so forth?
Yes, you are the only township.
Okay.
Yeah.
And of course, and you correctly said, that we were doing that because we had that requirement that was imposed on us by
Yep.
the MS4 thing, and I appreciate the work you've done, of course, on this. Took care of the educational requirement that we had that kind of that was. It was part of the administrative burden that we had when we were an MS4 community. Now, because of our, I don't know what it is, the most recent census and the standard that they apply, we're no longer obligated to comply with all this MS4, all these MS4 requirements. And so that was why we were going to discontinue this, because we would then be the only township without really being really having a
Yeah.
mandate to do it. And the other thing I want to see if I understand this right, because Valley Branch and Middle St. Croix Watershed or Water Management Organization encompass the territory of West Lakeland. This region is still would still have representation with you folks.
Sure.
And
Yep.
membership and
Yep.
so forth. So, that's just by way of explanation for people who may not understand why we're going to withdraw our
Yeah. And
participation.
I totally understand that. I just thought, know,
Right.
I put it out there that you don't necessarily have to leave just because you're not an MS4 anymore. But
Right.
yeah, but I do understand the rationale if you do decide to.
Okay. Any other thoughts, questions, comments, etc.? We've got Angie here.
Rachel, you think we should withdraw?
No, I think it's a small amount for the impact. And it's important to have like multiple funding sources, I think.
Even it's important for them to have.
Yeah, I think it's the more people that align with your organization, the easier it is for them to go out and get funding with other organizations.
Mhm.
I mean, it's $900. Like that's one mailing or like one half workshop probably. I think we probably underuse the services. So we could do a lot more. But I'd be eager to hear from people who have taken advantage of it. There's a lot of things I think a lot of our residents don't do, like some of the grants, some of the native planting stuff.
Well, yeah. Okay. So
We
on
have
that,
a bunch of new storm drains now.
yeah, that's right. Brand new.
Brand new.
ones, yeah. Well, on that point, see if I understand this. Do you folks administer and issue grants to people to have to fund native planting projects and so forth?
The watershed districts.
The watershed district does that.
Yeah,
Okay.
and so the conservation district kind of acts as the technical arm that does site visits, helps people draw up a planting plan, helps them apply for the grant, and then the watershed districts, most of them are very slim staffed, as you know. Middle St. Croix only has a half-time administrator, and then Valley Branch doesn't have an administrator at all. So they kind of provide funding, and then our staff are the ones that do the work.
Okay. And and of course, Middle St. Croix and Valley Branch are participating members. And so if somebody living within the jurisdiction of Middle St. Croix or Valley Branch wants to look into having a rain garden or something, they would go to you for maybe some of the planning and so forth, irrespective of whether West Lakeland is a participating
Oh,
member. It
sure.
doesn't
Yep.
go away. That
Yep,
ability
yep.
doesn't go away. And then the watershed district actually is the one that issues the grant, funds the project,
Yep.
either whole in part or in whole or something like that. Okay. Yeah. So I don't know. Do we want to do people want to have a vote on this? Should we do that?
I was reviewing the contract, and it looks like we signed an agreement that's like
Oh, yeah.
a 3-year agreement.
Oh, was that what we have? Okay.
I think it's 25 to 27.
Oh, okay. Is that,
Let me check the
is
board
that
pack.
everybody's understanding? We got a 3-year agreement that we're in the middle of?
It is possible. The whole reason this conversation came up is because Carrie had reached out and said, is it possible for us to discontinue in the middle of this 3-year contract? And I was like, yes. And then it was an open question as to whether you could discontinue in the middle of the year or had to wait until the beginning of the next year. And then in the course of, wondering that, we thought, well, maybe I should just come and talk to
Mhm, sure,
talk
yeah.
to the town board and make sure, you really wanted to leave before we take all those steps.
So we'd be voting to terminate the existing contract.
Well,
Prematurely.
if we can terminate it prematurely, maybe we could vote that way, but I don't know if we've entered into a contract that has a 3-year duration, I'm not sure if we have to wait till that contract expires or what. But I'll ask council. what he thinks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Board. I haven't seen the agreement, but like any other contract, you can only terminate it if there's a provision saying you can terminate, and then only in accordance with the terms of that provision. So I agree that if you want to back out of it, it would likely be direction to me to take a look at it and then report back on what your options are.
Well, maybe we should do that. Maybe we should have you take a look at it, tell us what our options are, and then we can make an intelligent decision on it. I think. I don't know. I'd hate to vote on something now and without really knowing, what our options are. You got a
Where is
comment?
the contract? I mean, I've read the contract. I just can't find
okay.
where I've read that.
Okay.
I can't remember exactly what the there is a termination clause in there that basically says with written desire that a member can leave the partnership. The thing that we were unsure on when we were reading through it and needed to, ask some attorney was, does that mean you would be giving written notice now to end in January of 2027? Or does it mean you'd be giving written notice now and just kind of ending with what payment you had already made for this year and then
Right.
the other half of this year left unpaid?
Right, and I think we should probably get the answer to that question before we do anything. We should know what that is. At least that's my thinking on it. What do people think? Sweet.
Yeah, there's a terminate. I found it. It was emailed to us earlier.
Oh.
There's a termination clause, but we could still have Troy look at it.
Okay. Well, maybe that's what we should do, just so we don't do something that potentially runs afoul of a termination clause in a contract.
Yeah.
Does that seem reasonable? Okay. Okay, anybody else have any further questions for Angie? Before we, any additional closing comments you want to make?
But thank you.
Okay. All right.
Yep. Thank you for being partners and for all these years. So,
Yes,
yeah.
thanks for the work you've done for us, because obviously we needed that to comply with our MS4
Yeah.
requirement.
Yeah.
And you folks were there for us to do that, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. All right, so let's see, our next item on the agenda then would be, the review of the noise regulation memorandum that Troy drafted for us. And I don't know if, I'll just maybe intro this with a little thumbnail. We had a proposal that we should enact an ordinance in West Lakeland that would limit airplane noise emanating from the Lake Elmo Airport. And so we did ask our attorney to take a look at what we what our rights were, I guess, and what our authority was, what our jurisdiction is in that regard. And in a nutshell, if I can paraphrase, I think the answer is probably that we can't regulate that noise, aircraft operations, for really two main reasons. One is that the airport is located in another jurisdiction, to wit, Baytown. And so what happens on the ground in Baytown is not something we get to legislate on or control via ordinance in West Lakeland. And the other issue is the issue of preemption of regulation of aircraft noise for planes flying over the township. And that, I think there's some case law in Minnesota, but I'll let Troy expand on this, that says basically that's the Metropolitan Airport Commission's jurisdiction, and I suppose maybe the Federal Aviation Administration's jurisdiction too. But maybe I should stop doing Troy's analysis and let him talk about it.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair and Board. You're right. So the memo I put together first briefly talked about some of the existing regulations that you have in your code on noise, which in one section does refer to this MPCA's regulations on noise, which are often referred to as being the base, because that really is kind of the set base noise restrictions within the state. Now, of course, there's obviously use-specific noise restrictions when it comes to a whole range of reasons and situations, but those are the general ones that folks look to. You also talk about animal noises, those sorts of things. So I know some of the concerns that were raised were regarding animal noises. But it seemed like the focus was on the airport noise. And as you pointed out, towns, this goes back to the Dillon rule, towns only have the authority that the legislature gives them. There are no inherent powers. And so in this particular case, or really in all cases, your authority is limited to your jurisdictional boundaries. There's very limited situations where the legislature gives a town the authority to do something outside of its boundaries. There are a couple examples, but enacting zoning regulations to regulate outside of your boundaries is not one of them. Cities have some limited authority to do that. Towns do not. And so that's kind of the analysis really stops there. But I know the airport noise is a consideration, and so I wanted to dig a little bit deeper into just generally the authority, assuming this was, say this was raised in Bayport. Do they have the authority? And so, without trying to be exhaustive on this, there are a couple cases that floated to the top. One is a United States Supreme Court case from 1973, where the city of Burbank attempted to put what they refer to as a curfew on a local airport, which means they said you can't operate aircraft with certain exceptions between the hours of 11 p.m. and 7 a.m. Obviously concerned about noise being generated about aircraft flying in the evenings or at overnight. And so that was challenged, went all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court. And basically preemption is this concept that kind of subordinate subordinate government entities cannot regulate something that's taken away from them or the fields of regulation is occupied by a higher level of government. So in this particular case, they found that Congress had acted in enacting this 1972 act that dealt with just FAA, and said that under that act, it essentially leaves no room for local curfews or other local controls. So a very sweeping decision that the federal government kept aircraft noise and regulation to itself in enacting that act. And then some years later, in 1994, there was an attempt to sue the MAC over noise out of its airport, and that one went up to the Minnesota Supreme Court. And the court, I'll read a short section from its decision. We do not doubt that aircraft noise generated by MSP is a serious and unpleasant problem which interferes with the enjoyment of life and property for people living in areas affected by that noise. The problem, though, cannot be remedied with means Congress preempted. So in that particular case, it was trying to apply those MPCA rules that I referred to earlier to MAC and its operations. And the court found that, just like the Supreme Court found that the federal law preempts not only in the city of Burbank case, the city ordinance, it also preempts state law attempting to regulate airport operations. So obviously, if it's prohibiting state noise laws, it's also preempting local laws as well. So yeah, there just is, not only can you not reach outside of your jurisdictional boundaries, that particular area of regulation is preempted, meaning it's off the table for local governments and the state. And then I go on to, because noise is no big surprise, is not an uncommon complaint. And so I highlighted some of the cases where trying to regulate noise is tricky. It's just inherently, what bothers me may not bother someone else, but I think it's wrong and therefore you should stop it. And it's like, well, but how do we write an ordinance that tries to capture describe that line in such a way that it can be objectively applied? And I just briefly highlighted some of the cases where the courts have said, no, it's unconstitutionally vague because it leaves it to the discretion of the people involved, the enforcers, to determine if something has crossed the line or not. Objectively, someone doesn't know where that line is, so how could they be found guilty of something if a reasonable person can't figure out what's a violation? So any number of things. That's not to say there aren't some that have survived legal challenge, but it's a very fraught area to regulate. Not to say you can't do it, but it's one of those things, not only do you measure twice before cutting, I'd say you measure 3-4 times before cutting on something like that. So just finish up by concluding that the town really doesn't have any authority to regulate airport noise for the reasons discussed. And to the extent you want to look at revising your current noise regulations, it really needs to be carefully done and like I said, measured several times before you get into that, for fears of crossing one of those constitutional boundaries. So I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
It sounds like one of the big difficulties is that the standard that you create in your ordinance has to be objective and not subjective.
Correct.
You can't say objectionable noise because that's in the eye of the beholder. you know?
Right, exactly. Yeah. That's why I wanted to talk about some of those cases, just to say how, and then these aren't, I mean, this is city of Mankato, this is, Minneapolis, these aren't, just winging it sort of cities. I mean, these are cities that put some thought behind it and still were found to have crossed the line.
And I think you mentioned that part of your review of our ordinances as you go through them will be to take a look at the objectivity versus subjectivity of some of our existing ordinances that deal with noises that are objectionable to people.
Correct, yes. Highlighting not only in this area, but other things that I think deserve review and discussion.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that is something, Mr. Chair, by the end of tonight, I think it would be helpful to talk about next steps when we get to that, with once the zoning draft is ready for review, just kind of what that process.
You want to go through that this evening, you saying?
If you don't mind,
Oh,
just
sure.
to talk briefly about, at least to get you as a board starting to think about how you think would be the most productive way. Because what I produce will not be looks good, let's adopt it. I mean, because there will
Yeah.
be definitely questions that will be raised. Believe me, there already are as I'm working through it. But, what sort of review process you want to go through on that?
Well, let's circle back to that under old and new business when we
Sounds
get to
good.
that. And,
Sounds good.
and that sounds like a good discussion to have a little bit later on in the meeting. All right, any other questions regarding the noise ordinance proposal and the memorandum that addresses that? Any other questions? Okay, if not, we can move on to our next.
Hold on.
Oh, go ahead.
Question on, so we have on the bird, we're talking about how it needs to be objective. And the dog noise is very specific, 5 minutes without a 1 minute break. I mean, it's very scientific. But then the chicken ordinance is more like if it's a nuisance.
Right.
So-
That's probably an example of a subjective one, the way it's currently written. So maybe we want to look at, making some.
Yeah,
So-
well, if we modify that or make more animal related or other noise, I think we should do follow the dog ordinance.
Yeah. Have objectively understandable standards. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I agree, it's complicated.
That's correct.
why I quoted it. All right. Okay, so the next item would be our street sweeping services agreement with Miller. And I just went through, we got a proposal from Miller to do the street sweeping this year. And I went through and made a little comparison with last year's rates, and they've gone up a little bit, It looks like all the equipment rates are up 5% from last year. And the labor charge and the minimum charge are both up 20% from last year. Those are substantial increases. But I think we probably still need to do it. We can't leave the sand on the roads. There's also a disposal charge that's gone up only 2.8%, so that can't argue with that. And I really don't know how big of a component the labor I don't even understand. I mean, the labor charge has gone up 20%, but it may not be a very large component. I don't know. Probably isn't a real big component. It doesn't stick out like a sore thumb, I would imagine. Nobody's here to tell us what did it cost us last year for this? Do you know that right off the top of your head? Or do we have to wait for Marcia? Marcia, do you know? Okay. Yeah, I mean, probably no matter what it is, it's something we need those services, and we've always used Miller. But any thoughts from anybody on the street sweeping? Yeah, you have some thoughts? Turn your mic on.
Oops,
That's all right.
thank you.
You betcha.
The sweeping, does that include the trucking, the disposal?
Well, yeah, see, disposal is part of the proposal, and the
Right.
disposal part of it only goes up 2.8%, but go ahead.
Yeah. Does that include the trucking, or is the trucking separate?
Oh, I assume it's just one bill. I mean, I don't think they charge us separately for the trucking.
I don't know.
Yeah. Any other discussion about the street sweeping? Yeah, go ahead. You got something?
When I'm looking on our proposed budget for 2027, that's on the front page of the website. We have the actuals for 2025. Is that what you're asking? What did
Yeah,
we
yeah.
spend? The street cleaning $11,909.
How much?
11,900.
$11,909 in 2025.
Okay. All
We're
right.
budgeting 27.5 this year.
Should be cheap this year.
Why? Because we don't have any sand? No?
Well, no, there isn't as much put down.
Some of those streets that I've been driving on look like there's a fair amount of sand. And the thing of it is, we had like 4 inches of ice, from that first storm.
Yeah.
Some people remember that. And I got calls that school buses were
Oh, yeah.
sliding off the road and everything. It was terrible.
It was terrible.
And so I think we probably did, put down a fair amount of sand just to keep the school buses on the road.
Good idea.
So we're gonna have street sweeping, but it's I don't see a way around it, and I don't think these increases are gonna make it so that it will exceed the budget. So I'm gonna move that we accept this proposal and enter into this street sweeping contract actually at this meeting, so that they can actually get started on it right away as soon as the snow is gone, which is basically now.
So they would do it now.
Well, they probably won't do it before the middle of the month, maybe.
Okay.
But
I was just
because
curious.
it could snow again. But I mean, we'd like to get that off the streets before the middle of April, I think.
Yeah.
Which would be the next opportunity. So I'm going to move that we enter into the 2026 agreement with Miller for this. And do I have a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? John, anything? Anything? Any other thoughts, questions?
I kind of wonder what other town, like what Baytown pays, and assuming they use Miller, or is this something that we just go with?
Yeah.
Or do we, I mean, I don't want to start getting pricing for every single thing, but I didn't get a 20% raise this year,
Yeah, yeah.
but it's not a huge cost. So
I mean, maybe we should do some kind of, comparative shopping. I kind of feel like for this year, we probably should not,
I agree.
it's probably a little late in the year to be doing that, but maybe in future years, we should take a look at,
I think the
Does
rates
anybody
overall
else
are fine too. Just
yeah.
maybe they're playing catch up. But if it's 20% year over year, eventually we're gonna.
Yeah, that would be unsustainable, basically. Any other discussion before we vote? We'll need a roll call, I think.
Supervisor Dana,
Aye.
Supervisor Bulow,
Aye.
Chairman Moosberger.
Aye. Okay, thank you. See, we've already got, yeah, Troy already did somebody did the updating of the agreement. I think with Troy's approval, maybe Carrie did it. And so I think we actually can, we've got what we need to enter into this now, right? In terms of documentation, okay. All right. Time for the Planning Commission update, and Dell is ready with that, so. Thank you.
Good evening, board and staff.
That's loud. That's no good.
Hello?
Okay,
Okay,
sorry.
are we ready?
We're ready.
Okay.
I was just introducing you with that, that's
Yeah,
what that was.
yeah, okay. Marcia will have a hard time to top that when she gets here. Okay, we had our planning commission meeting in February and there wasn't a lot on the agenda and the board was in attendance, so there's nothing really to update you about because you're all aware of what we talked about. The only thing we do have is that we have two members whose terms are ended, and that is Dave Sanaki and Marion Apelt, and we checked with them, and they want to continue in serving in the planning commission, and so we would like the board to reappoint Dave Sanaki and Marion Apelt to the planning commission.
That strikes me as a non-controversial request,
We didn't argue about it
No.
at all. No, not at
Right.
all.
right? I will move that we reappoint Dave Sanaki and Marion Apelt to the West Lakeland Planning Commission.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any dissent? No?
None whatsoever.
Okay, all right. All right, so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no? Okay, there, congratulations to
And thank you.
both of them. And thank you, yes, thank you. Yeah.
And that is essentially everything. The planning commission had sort of a workshop, actually, getting their computers all up to date on the software for accessing the town server. And the remainder of the business was pretty light, so the next meeting is March 19th, unless we have nothing to discuss. So there we have it. That's the extent of my report.
All right, well, thank you, Del. Concise and to the point. Thank you very much. Well, we arrived at the old and new business item on the agenda, and so maybe this is a good time for Troy to and us to have a discussion about how we're going to proceed with the town code updates and revamp.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair and board. You know, it occurred to me, so I've been through this process with different communities, with different size of projects, and you know, yours is a long code. There's a lot in there, and I am changing a fair amount of language, not the regulations though. You know, it's not up to me to say that setback should be this and not that. So not changing that, but adding some language, cleaning some language up. But I'm sure there's going to be several questions and why did you do this and why is this? And oh, Troy, you missed that. Let's get that fit. You know, just a project of this size is inevitably going to raise questions. And so I'm not suggesting that tonight you decide on anything, but I just wanted to start the discussion about how you would like to engage in that review. You know, do you want it to go to the planning commission first to be talked about? Do you want to appoint one supervisor and a couple commission members to talk about it and run through it, you know, kind of offline before it goes live before either body at a public meeting? There's any number of ways you can do it. So I just wanted you to start thinking about that. And if you have any questions, again, focusing on the zoning ordinance first, which your current code has subdivision regulations separately. I really think those should all be part of the same code. You know, that chapter that talks about both zoning and subdivisions all together. And so that's how it's being structured. But anyway, there's no one right way of doing it. It'd just be helpful to think about how, because when I say, okay, here we are, you know, then what?
Right, right. Yeah, you know, I mean, I hadn't really thought about this myself, you know, how do we actually, you know, what are the mechanics? How do we actually go about, you know, digesting this, looking at it and everything? The first thought that occurred to me before you made your suggestions was that we probably wouldn't want to, you know, bog down a regular monthly meeting with all these discussions necessarily. We'd probably have to have a special meeting or two or something. Maybe we'd have an initial special meeting to look at what's happened and kind of digest it. And if it looks too unwieldy, maybe, you know, maybe at that meeting we would decide to, you know, like you say, appoint a couple people from the planning commission and maybe a board member or something to take it from there. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm kind of thinking maybe the first look at it, you know, maybe we do it at a special meeting so that everybody, you know, has a chance to look at it and decide what the magnitude of this job is, you know. But I also welcome comments from the other board members about how you folks would like to approach it.
Well, in the past, I think the planning commission, especially if it's related to planning the planning commission used to actually draft the ordinances or the changes very carefully, word for word, but I'm not going to volunteer the planning commission without their consent for initial review, because I think there's more of them and they're 10 years longer than ours. And they put a lot of effort into the code to date. So if they're willing to take the first kind of look, we can all look at it, but I think they could get further than I would be able to.
Well, yeah, I mean, okay, you know, that's an approach. Maybe we could see how that works. You
Well,
know?
we've done some code revisions since Troy's been on board, small ones. I think
Right.
Troy had proposed language, the planning commission looked at it, I think, and then it came to
Yeah.
us. Or
Yeah, and that's certainly the way it would normally go. I just didn't know. I mean, I've been involved where there's public committees formed and we met every month for 2 years to go through a code update. You know, I mean,
Right.
there's just a huge range of ways to handle it. But you're right. Normally, an amendment, although obviously a project of this size is not, you know, tweak this or add this to that. I mean, this is a huge thing. So you know, if you're comfortable having it go to the planning commission first for review, that works perfectly fine. And just understand that there will be some of these things, like it was pointed out earlier today, the language about noise from chickens, that needs to be tweaked.
Oh, right.
And
right.
so my thought is, I would take a shot at that as part of this update to try to clean that up. But then, I don't know, you know, make sure you're comfortable with it, and there'll be new language and things like that. So, but if you're comfortable with the planning commission taking the first stab at it, I think that would be fine.
Yeah, sure. And so, and maybe we should say, that's one thing you could do at your March meeting is talk about whether you folks like that idea, Dell I'm talking to, you know, you know, whether you have some thoughts about how to digest this and comment on it and so forth, you know, what format you think it should take. I mean, I do kind of think, you talk about, you know, kind of public committees, you know, hashing through. There's this old thing, too many cooks spoil the broth. I mean, you know, you get too many people involved and pretty soon you are talking a 2-year project, you know? So you know, I'd want to avoid, I'd want to keep it kind of streamlined at least for the initial, you know, go through and everything, as opposed to just, you know, turning it into a multi-year project. But maybe you guys want to talk about that at your planning commission meeting later this month. What do you think?
Well, we could take a stab at it, but when it comes to noise regulations, everything that I've read seems to indicate that it's really, really difficult to move the regulations
Oh, sure.
because it's affected by temperature, wind,
Oh, yeah.
trees,
Yeah.
everything around. And one day it'll be objectionable, and the next day it won't.
And that's, yeah.
So it's hard to draw up an ordinance to cover that variable situation.
Right, and I mean, that's fine, but you know, the noise part of this is a very small part of this whole project. You know what I mean? This is the zoning ordinance and the subdivision ordinance, much broader than just noise. So, you know, if there's a sticky question that's difficult to you know, tackle, I think if I were the planning commission, I'd say, well, let's set this aside for further discussion and look at the big picture, look at the big project here, you know, the zoning and subdivision part of the ordinance. The noise thing shouldn't sort of be the major thing that you're considering, it seems to me.
Yeah, that's a good point, though. If we clarified the scope, I guess the sections that you're redrafting or whatever.
Everything.
It's the whole thing.
It's
Okay.
the whole thing. So, Mr. Chair, I mean, when I've done huge code projects before, what we did is we'd have a section, a chapter or two done and then reviewed. And that way you kind of break it up into
Oh, yeah, sure.
digestible.
Okay.
And then we'd meet, discuss it with the planning commission, get their input, perhaps make some changes, go to the board, in that case it was the council, to review, see if they're comfortable with it, and kind of do this back and forth as we worked our way through it. But again, it doesn't have to be that way. But to be clear, this would be the idea of looking at the entire zoning and subdivision, ultimately, the whole thing, and just not expecting the planning commission to draft anything at all. It's more just to read it. Are you comfortable with it? Do you have any questions? Those sorts of things. So it's more just getting comfortable and understanding and making sure that it's something that you feel okay with, because ultimately it will become before the planning commission for a hearing.
So, yeah, the idea of breaking it into at least some bite-sized pieces.
Well, I guess it'll come probably. We'll have to
Yeah,
figure
all at
that
once,
out.
okay, yeah, whatever. And then,
It will be in the total, yes.
and then, yeah, and I suppose the planning commission might do the things that you just mentioned, you know, are we comfortable with this? Do we see issues with it and so forth? And maybe also, do we identify issues that the board's gonna have to weigh in on, because there are policy questions, you know, involved that need to be addressed. So, yeah, it'll be a project, and so I think maybe it'd be good to have a discussion at the planning commission to decide whether you're, you know, comfortable with approaching it and how you want to approach it.
So as I understand it, you'd like us to review the zoning
Yeah.
and subdivision portions of the ordinances?
Of the ordinance as drafted by council, okay, as drafted by your attorney. Not, you know,
Forthcoming.
yeah, forthcoming. You don't have to review what we got now, to the extent, but I mean, this is gonna be a draft that Troy is gonna prepare, and then the planning commission is gonna take a look at that draft and decide whether they're comfortable with the draft, whether they have questions about it, whether there are questions that the planning commission thinks that the board should weigh in on, et cetera, et cetera. So reviewing Troy's work for, is it acceptable? Are there issues? Are there problems?
Okay, when is the next
When? Can you have can you have it done in a week? Kidding. So I would say, it sounds like April maybe, is when Troy has targeted for, having a first draft of either the whole thing or a substantial part of it.
Yeah, my goal would be to have all of the zoning and subdivision regulations, that whole section.
Okay. Prepared by their April, meeting or by the end of April, so that they'd be taken up in May.
I can't imagine it. Well, when is the April meeting?
Third Thursday in April, so toward the end of
Possibly.
the
Yeah,
month, possibly.
Sure.
So either April or May, depending on when it gets done. That would be the timing.
Our next meeting is scheduled for the 19th of March, and so far we don't have anything on the agenda.
Right, but I'm saying you could,
I know, but April we might have,
okay.
sounds like.
Oh,
I
okay.
mean, Is draft might be ready in April.
Could be ready in April or for sure by the May meeting.
What I'm hearing is planning commission to at least consider how we want to do the process.
Precisely.
We want to do the reviews of how that process should look, so that's what our agenda is.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I agree.
Yep.
Because I don't want to
I just
volunteer.
want to clarify and make sure that we, so in our March meeting, we can discuss what the process, we envision the process to be, to do the review of all of the ordinances.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep, well put.
And maybe how that plays into the comp plan workload for next year when that's starting in August, I think. Just think about workload in its totality. We don't want to burn out the planning commission.
No, we don't want to do that. All right, now you've got something for the March agenda. All right, thank you.
No, and Mr. Chair,
Thank you, yes.
I wouldn't be available that night, but it is, I really need to be part of that process so I can answer questions.
Oh.
I mean, I suggest that, it's your call. But otherwise, I'm concerned that there may be, well, why did he do this? And I don't know, why do you think he did this? And
Okay,
we got to make a note of that. And then, I just think there needs to be, I need to be available to answer questions and explain things. Otherwise, you're going to be in a bit of an echo chamber, not knowing what the answer is to these things. And there's going to be a long list of questions. And I just don't think that's the most efficient way
Sure.
of handling it.
good point. You're not suggesting though that, I mean, are you saying you should be at their March meeting when they're going to decide how they want to
No.
do this? No,
No.
but you want to be at meetings where they are in fact considering the draft.
I think that would be the most efficient. Otherwise, you're going to be struggling with well, why did you do that?
Agreed. Agreed. So does their meeting schedule not fit your?
The April one doesn't. I'm going to be out of town that night, but I think normally those Thursdays are open.
Okay.
You said Thursday?
Third Thursday, yeah.
What time do you meet? I have a meeting at 5:30 those evenings, but they're usually done by 7. So I should be able, and whether I can
You
zoom in.
zoom in, yeah.
I can zoom in to save a little bit of time.
Yeah.
And if I could do that, that would be great. Save the drive.
Okay, sounds like a plan is incubating, being developed. That's good. All right, thank you all. We're moving forward on that. That's good. Looks like we can proceed now to agenda item number 3, which is the treasurer's report and payment of the bills. Marcia.
I apologize for my lateness. Baytown just decided tonight on what their budget was gonna be that they're bringing forward for their levy amount, so, there was some discussions there, so I apologize. So in the month of February, the township recorded $94,816 worth of receipts. $45,844 was from a Comcast franchise fee, $4,038 from building permits, $86 from 3 data requests, $400 refund of our MS4 permit fee from the MPCA, and $37,669 for fuel tax. The township paid out $118,087. 9236 was payroll. 9,000 was 3 driveway escrows returns. 3,432 was building inspection. 8190 was recycling. Salt and sand was 4455. There was 4,856 legal expenses and 69,385 for Miller snow removal, but that included November, December, January. I apparently had missed a couple there. Bringing our liabilities and current assets to $5,605,613.10. We had one CD that matured in February at First State, but we were able to secure a 7-month special again and keeping the rate of 3.95%. So that will come back up in September, and we don't have any others furthers coming up until June.
All right, thank you for that. And I've heard interest rates might go up again a little bit because of all the developments over the weekend. I don't know. Let's not bank on that. In any event, thank you for that. I will move then that we accept the treasurer's report and approve payment of the bills that have been presented.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Okay, all right,
Not today.
all right. Hearing none, we'll need a roll call on payment of the bill.
Yep. Supervisor Bulow,
Aye.
Supervisor Dana,
Aye.
Chairman Musburger.
Aye. Thank you. You know, it's kind of ironic. We pay Miller to put the sand on the roads, and then we pay him again to take it off. I don't know. Just a little irony there.
That was a discussion point at Baytown tonight also.
Really?
Yeah.
Did they think there was a way around that? Maybe we should see what they have to say.
They had talked about going to 100% salt, but I don't know if that's gonna
Oh.
improve your bottom line.
Well, Angie Hong, it's too bad she wasn't here.
You can't
because-
do that. I
No.
mean, the watershed, there's rules about that.
Oh, okay.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Marcia, for that.
But while you were here, we were talking about, does Baytown use Miller as well for the street sweeping?
They do.
Okay.
You don't know if they get a sweeter deal, do you?
No, they're.
Okay. Well, that answers that.
Well, that's
We
good.
just did that research.
Yeah.
Just took a second. Oh, really? Well, you know, if we get high enough winds, you know,
Are we
Mike-
sweeping 30th?
I don't know.
Okay.
That's a good question. I
Are
don't
we sweeping the south half of 30th? Okay. All right.
know.
Sore subject.
Yeah.
I assume there's no update there.
Interesting. No, there's no update there. We're still waiting to hear from MinDOT on our grant proposal. And the goal is to hear by the end of this month. And we hope to hear by the end of this month. So maybe next month we'll have some good news to report. We hope. Knock on wood. All right. Time for public comment. If anybody would like to make a comment. Sure. Well, yeah, sure. Why don't you step up to the,
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm actually here representing the event committee,
Oh.
and we are going to be presenting at the annual township meeting an elector resolution that would approve spending funds for our community events, our National Night Out event, and whatever service recognition awards. So, looking at the proposed 2027 budget, what was in there was $1,500 for the National Night Out event and $600 for any service recognition. We met over the weekend, and we're not going to be asking for any money outside of that at this point in time. that would cause a change to the levy and everything, and I don't think it's worth it at this time. But with that in mind, though, we did have some questions prior to the presentation that we're going to do, and one question is, who needs to write that resolution and update it? I've seen templates for it. Troy, are you the person that writes and drafts the resolution for us for this?
Mr. Chair and Board, I did it last time.
Okay, so if you could have one available for us for next week, Tuesday, I believe is the annual meeting, a week from tomorrow?
Yep, it is.
Okay.
Tuesday,
and-
8:30.
No, it had the dates all wrong. I couldn't edit it. I mean, I just think it should maybe perhaps come from Troy instead with the numbers in there and the right dates and stuff.
So what are the dates and the numbers that you need in it?
Well, the date would be obviously March 10th of 2027.
The date.
Or
for the- oh, I
2026.
see. I thought you were talking about the dates of the events.
No,
You're talking about, this will be a resolution that will be hopefully approved at the annual meeting on March 10th.
correct.
And the dollar amounts you've set forth, and you're
Were-
going to request are 600 for a volunteer appreciation dinner, volunteer recognition dinner, I guess.
Yeah,
and-
it's just service recognition.
Service
is what it
recognition
says.
dinner, okay.
However, and
Or
then
event, maybe.
1,500 for the proposed National Night Out, which I believe is always the first Tuesday of August. Isn't that what the dates are? I don't have the dates in mind, but
We could just say August. I
Yeah.
suppose. Does that seem reasonable?
Those are the only two numbers, 600 and
Yep.
1,500?
Well,
Yep.
Troy, could we just use the language we used last year and just change the numbers? And there was actually a blank that we filled in our own dollar amount.
Yeah.
Because it is an elector resolution. I just don't know how this works. I assumed it was supposed to come from the electors.
yeah, I mean, this is a copy of it, but if you look at everything in there, all this stuff would have to be changed. So we could put in the 1,500 and the 600, but all those dates have to be changed.
I have
because
the ability to edit it if you'd like me to do it, rather
Um,
than charging the attorney to do it.
It doesn't matter.
Does that
Okay.
seem reasonable? Yeah,
That's fine.
it seems
I was
reasonable.
gonna say, if someone doesn't have a Word version, I certainly can resend it.
Okay,
Okay,
I can edit it for you.
okay. Oh, maybe I didn't realize that I could do the editing on
Yeah, you
that too,
can.
so.
I can manipulate it.
Okay, so then do I just bring it? I mean, I could certainly do that and just
That would
bring
be a
it.
question for Troy. Troy, you're the one that guided on us on this, so
Does this
Elector
have to
just
be,
brings
does
it-
this have to be the documents like placed in the back there for people to look at? And
Yeah, so, Mr. Board and Chair, I like to do the resolution because it provides some certainty versus, oh, Bill, you make the motion. It's like, and you sometimes end up with language, no one's fault, but there's not a custom making motions. That's why I like to have it in writing. So it's, please adopt this, and if people aren't comfortable with it, they can vote no, but if they are, then they can just vote to adopt that resolution, and then you know what the numbers are and what they're for and all that sort of thing. But yes, it's something you come prepared with, and that's not to say if folks say, I don't think $600 is enough, it should be $700. Someone can say, I make a motion to approve the resolution with $700 instead of $600. I'm making that up, but, and then obviously that gets changed and signed after the meeting by the moderator. But, yes, so you'd come there presented with the numbers filled in, and if folks want to change it, they can change it.
okay, all right. Then back to our other question. Last year we were given up to $10,000 to spend on our 75th anniversary event. And we also at the same time solicited donations. We did actually end up spending a little bit more than $10,000. We spent $10,735 according to our tracking that we did. But we also collected like $3,900 in donations and contributions from the gravel pits and residents, etc., which really brought down what we spent down to like, of that $10,000, brought us down to like $6,835. So one of the things that we were wondering about is, can we use that remaining $3,165 dollars that would bring us up to the 10,000 that we were allowed to spend. Can we use those funds and roll it over into, say, this year's and or next year's, and just have this rolling pot of money? So even though we'll get $1,500 for the event for 2027, I think we only had an amount of about $750 for this year. If we could use those funds, that would help us in our planning process. And I don't know if that is something that we can or cannot do.
So, Mr. Chair and Board, the electors authorize an amount of money to be spent up to. I really don't see that as an allocation of those funds. It really is, we give you latitude up to a certain amount to do these things in the upcoming year. I would really encourage you to not think of it as rollover funds, that if you're able to get it done with 8,000, that somehow you have 2,000 carrying over. I really don't see a carryover. So I would really encourage you that if you're planning for an upcoming year, get the authorization for up to that, whatever amount you think is appropriate, without considering any leftover or rollover from the prior years.
Okay,
So you
Makes
could
sense.
ask for,
I'm sorry?
so you could ask for an increased amount, given that you did the fundraising,
Well,
if you wanted to.
This is where, in my opinion, it gets a little bit complicated, because if you look at the proposed budget, that was 2026 proposed budget, which was approved last year, it only gave us $750 for our event, but the resolution that was approved was $1,500. So there's a gap of $750 there, that the levy only proposed $750, but the resolution approved up to $1,500. So what is our budget for this year, I guess, is the problem.
And, maybe Marcia can address that, because I mean, I think, if the resolution approves the expenditure of up to $1,500, I think as long as we don't, overspend our budget, we can spend the $1,500, even though on paper, the proposed budget maybe says $750, but if the electors approve $1,500, I would assume we can spend it, but go ahead.
Yeah, so Mr. Chair, this is one of those dual authorization. If you go back to when I used to teach this stuff on the road, I talked about town powers coming with keys. The electors hold some keys and the town board holds some keys. And the authority boxes, there's 3 of them. The authority the electors have on their own, that they can turn that key in that box on their own without town board approval. There's ones that the town board can turn without elector approval, zoning, for instance. And there's ones, so the third category of box requires 2 keys. Each of the groups turning their key. This is one of those third box situations. So the town board can't say, just go ahead and spend a bunch of money on a celebration, because the statute specifically says the electors have to approve the amount to spend on that, or up to a certain amount. So you need both. Just because the electors say, you get a very civic minded group and they say, you know what, we did 1,500 last year, let's do 10,000 this year because we really want to blow it out. And town goes, we're not spending that money on that. We'll approve only 15. So it doesn't really matter that the electors said 10,000. That's where the town board could go up to, but they could choose to top out at somewhere below that. So if the board only authorizes something less than that, ultimately that's all that can be spent. Right? But if the electors say 1,000 and the town board wants to spend 5,000, tough. It tops out at 1,000.
And maybe one further question, just to help answer a question that I anticipate, is that if our proposed budget says 750, and the electors say 1,500, up to 1,500, we can later on, we're not constrained by what was put in that proposed budget. We can later on say, we're going to spend the whole 1,500.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so it just from a planning purpose standpoint, we need to know which was our budget for this year, and so thank
And
you,
so
I appreciate that.
you've proposed 1,500 for the night out and 600 for the volunteer event, and so that would be that would be the maximum that we could approve, assuming the electors approve that. Right.
Correct. So that's the difference for this year versus next year, because the proposed that are coming through with the resolution is for 1,500 and 600.
Yeah.
Okay. For 2027.
27.
For 2026, we had, there was the resolution that was approved last year, and I think it was 1,500, and I don't remember what the amount was for the
Volunteer
service
appreciation,
recognition.
yeah.
I don't remember that number off the top of my head, but
Okay.
it was 1,500 that the resolution approved us to spend. So, so we'll just assume that we can spend the 1,500 as we're planning the event moving forward, and assume that we can't do any kind of rollover funds.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Which also brings up another thing that I think I've talked to a couple of people about already. You know, there's been comments made about doing other events, you know, whether that be like bringing back the Santa photos or, you know, community coffee or something like that. I think moving forward, since we have to have like a resolution to do these kinds of community events, that perhaps the event committee needs to be sort of discussed up front as well before we put proposed budgets together in the future, so that, you know, there's some input from us as to what we think it's going to cost to do, you know, a hot dog and chips versus just ice cream versus, you know, so that we get a better idea, just as a thought, you know. And I guess the other question is do we actually need like a sanctioned event committee in order to continue these kinds of activities? I don't know what it takes to be a sanctioned committee in the township.
That's a very good question.
So the town board can create committees, but I would strongly recommend that they don't do that. If you were to formally be established as a committee, you'd be bound by the Data Practices Act, the open meeting law, things like that you really don't want to be a part of. So it's a lot better just to have a volunteer group that gets together when they want to get together and not worry about 3 days posted notice and you know, keeping it open to the public and all that sort of thing.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. I guess I hadn't thought about it in that way. Yeah.
And so a volunteer group that gets together and has proposals and brings them to the board, and then the board can pass on those. And in this case, you're going to bring a proposal to the electors, and the electors are going to make it, you know, that they're going to
Okay.
decide on your proposal. But as Troy said, then it's a volunteer group that's getting together on an ad hoc
Okay.
basis, not an appointed committee.
And then at some point in time, we'll probably need to talk about how do we solicit more volunteers, whether that be on our website or, you know, whatever. So we don't want to burn out all the volunteers that we have either. So, okay. Well, then I guess I can just go ahead and make the changes on this resolution word-wise and then go from there. And then we'll bring a couple copies the night of, and one for the public copy and one for the moderator to sign. And we're gonna stick with what was put in the proposed budget at this point in time. So, did
Sounds
I miss
good.
anything, folks?
No, I was curious about, because we're just ad hoc, and we just get together whenever we want to, whenever we need to. Would we be able to use the building here to meet, or because of all the other requirements with the policy, do we have to comply with that because of the fact that, that's, I guess, what I'm curious about.
You know, now that we have our, you know, rental policy and everything, I don't see any problem with a volunteer group that wants to use the town hall. Go ahead and apply, you know, for that rental of it, just like a 4-H group would, or a HOA or anybody else. I would think that wouldn't cause any complications.
Just remember, no fireworks or liquor.
Oh, liquor.
Okay, thank you. Do you guys have any questions?
No.
Either of you?
Are you presenting at the annual meeting? Okay. Maybe you could solicit for volunteers if people are interested then, too.
That's a good idea.
That's true.
Yeah, you'll have a room full of people.
Hopefully.
In theory, right?
I mean, if we were putting up a cell phone tower, you'd for sure have a room full of people, right?
Should we say we're considering?
No, let's not.
No, I think we should say that we're considering putting in a municipal water system. Get everybody here.
There you go.
Just kidding.
Yeah.
That's an interesting way to drive engagement.
Thank you. Thank you very much for all your efforts. Appreciate it. Okay, any other public comment? Yes, Mary? Could you possibly, if you wouldn't mind, this way, because people who are watching it on, YouTube or whatever, can't probably hear when you're in your seat there.
Listening to your presentation on the noise ordinance
Yeah.
for the airport, it sounds like this is pretty finite. And I think I'd like to ask that you don't make it finite. I think there's a lot of information that you don't have, that you need to have. One of the first ones being that everything, these lawsuits and things that you referred to are with large airports. They're with aircraft over 12,000 pounds. And we are dealing with 12,500 and less. And so there's a whole different set of rules for that. And there are other lawsuits that have been in place where recommendations have been made. The FAA is very concerned with how airports like MSP operate. Not so much concerned about general aviation. And I'm not to say they blow them off, but there are conditions that can be made. And while the MPCA says MAC, we don't cover anything under MAC, MAC takes care of MAC. There's also the issue that the Metropolitan Council, because we are outside of the MUSA line, says that our noise levels are 55 day and 45 night. And they're not conceding to that. Even when MAC says flight times are they're supposed to stop at 10 p.m. until 7 a.m., they still go during the night. And, 11, 12 o'clock, we'll have that going on. And it'll get worse now that summer is coming. So we do have, and this is where it becomes a health issue. We do have logs that indicate where we have noise up to 120 decibels at our front door. And that's with windows and doors closed. So, we have that somebody has to recognize, because that's a health hazard. And so there's a lot of information that we have. There are a lot of things. I'm sure you've never looked at the long-term comp plan for the airport. And we have all that information. And I think it needs to be shared. And from what we can come out of that, I think a noise ordinance is still in order for the airport. That's all I have to
Right.
say.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
Thanks for your comment. Any other public comment before we entertain a motion to adjourn? Go ahead.
I don't know if I brought this up at the last meeting, but I attended the meeting at the Lake Elmo Airport, and they said they're going to extend runway, I think it's 22 and they said that should cut down on noise that on the other, I'm just telling you what they said.
I know, but the runway that concerns us is the longest runway.
Correct.
And the crosswind is not going to be as long. That is going to affect Baytown and those people over there. And in addition to the noise, there are other health hazards, like lead is a huge problem. And there is a finding of endangerment by the US EPA regarding that. And nobody is doing anything about it. But it's there, it's in place. And that's your learning curve for children. It's your heart problems and hearing problems in seniors. And that occurs up to a 2-mile radius around the airport. They found lead in the wells in Middleton, Wisconsin, and can directly relate it back to Afghans. So, there are a lot of things that happen when you say, do you use de-icer? The response from MAC is no. But if I say to you, what would they use de-icer on? You would say on the wings on a cold day, they de-ice the plane. At Lake Elmo, they de-ice the runways. They don't de-ice planes, but they do de-ice the runways. And so de-icer is going down into our wells. It's going into the water system, going through the groundwater. So, I mean, these are all things that are happening, but nobody is really aware.
Mary,
So,
sorry to
go
interrupt.
ahead, go ahead.
Do you know what kind of de-icer they use on the runways?
I have asked that question multiple times and I have never gotten a response.
John, your comment about the main runway is probably not very true because it all depends on the winds.
Correct.
And for the most part,
Yeah.
in the summer, those winds are coming from the southeast and they take off into the winds. And that's exactly the direction that goes right over our heads.
I'm just telling you what they told me, that it could
But I don't
cut down
think
on
it-
it.
You know, all the comments
They
about the
spew many
complaints going down, that's because we're tired of doing complaints. Because they don't do anything about it. They've made it pretty obvious that they will do nothing about it. They have done nothing to help us.
Maybe we should contact one of you to hold this meeting with and bring all these things forward. You know, just to see what we can do.
Well, all right. All right, it's an issue, but I don't know if we really have the authority to impact that issue
Well,
here at
actually,
the
you do,
township.
and you have it through the FAA. It's just that MAC is the one that has to request it, and they don't really want to do that. But that is how it plays out.
Well, all right, any other public comment at this point? If not, I would move that we adjourn. Do I have a second?
My last one.
Oh.
I second.
Well, maybe we shouldn't adjourn this thing quite so quickly.
Oh, okay.
Let's give you a few more minutes. Let's give it like 8:30 on the board. I'm kidding. Thank you for your service though, John.
Yeah, thanks, John.
It's been a pleasure.
It's been interesting. I've met some interesting people. It's interesting to see how the county or the state sometimes works and doesn't work
Sure.
when you get inside. So it's been fun in some of the areas.
Good, good. Glad you enjoyed it.
Yep. My wife didn't.
No, no, I know what you're saying there. All right, well, all those in favor of adjournment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you very much.